Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this album review. It's time to talk about the sixth studio album by Michigan-based metalcore band We Came as Romans. This one is entitled Darkbloom, the follow-up to 2017's Cold Like War, their best album to date as of that release. And of course, the first since the tragic passing of lead singer Kyle Pavone. He passed away in 2018 of an accidental drug overdose at the age of 28. To say We Came as Romans has fought through hell to get to this point is an understatement. I don't think anyone would have faulted them for hanging up their seven strings and calling it a day and bowing out in the face of unspeakable tragedy. But they admirably pressed on, and the slate of one off singles that we got over the last 3 years offered a glimpse into how they were processing their grief and how they wished to move ahead. Carry the Weight was a soul crushing jaunt, and from the first note, even sampled Kyle's vocals. But after 3 years of sample sizes, a full view of We Came as Romans with Dave Stevens as the sole frontman is here, and he assaults the microphone with some of the most vicious and enraged, unclean vocals of his career. Look at opening title cut, Darkbloom, and Daggers as prime examples. His vocals take what could otherwise be written off as derivative by the book metalcore compositions and elevates them to a place where the fury feels more palpable, more cathartic, and earns its right to exist. The former track in particular is also a better use of his raspier and grittier attempt at clean vocals. He doesn't have the glossy sheen on his voice that Kyle did, but he doesn't have to. His singing may grate a bit at times throughout this album, like on the song Plagued, but I'm just calling balls and strikes here. It's not fair to judge him against a talent and sensibility considerably unlike his own, especially in the face of his grieving. And again, his breakdown leading uncleans more than compensate. That's not a thing. There's plenty of breakdowns on Darkbloom, the kind that less cynical fans of mainstream metalcore like myself eat up like candy. If you can manage to set the gloomy rain cloud over the landscape to the side long enough, you can take the chance to just headbang and enjoy the ride. Black Hole is another example of Dave's vocals elevating the affair. The song opens with poppy bells and whistles and his electronically altered vocals, a combination that would have made me cringe in any other case, but it builds up to a solidly sung chorus and a nice pairing of Stevens with Beartooth's Caleb Shomo. Again, if you can look past the nominally questionable risks they take compositionally, there is payoff waiting. Lyrically, We Came as Romans traverses the rightfully so messy sensations of grief, apathy like on Black Hole, hopefulness like on Daggers, which features a decidedly unnecessary feature from Philadelphia based rapper 0936, and of course, longing to get your dear friend back, like on Golden and album closer Promise You. On the former track, Dave addresses Kyle's lingering spirit in a way that really puts perspective on the situation. When our time was stolen, our years were golden, as if to say, in my estimation, that the moment Kyle left this world, the times they had together became immortalized, sort of a time capsule, a scrapbook suddenly complete, unable to be added to. The bridge even references one of Kyle's favorite songs, Lost in the Moment, in the form of some thoughtful imagery. Show me the way to let the colors in. On this track, he also expresses an unwavering desire to press ahead. I don't want to stay forever in repair. This particular trend of Dave being unable to not express Kyle or address him almost directly continues on Midstage Highlight, One More Day. Perhaps more inherently spiritual than any other song on the album, Dave neatly counterbalances a mainline radio rock sound palette with, again, like more pop centric sensibilities. Getting back to Promise You, this what surely is the most unabashedly pop centric and subdued cut on here. Dave is all kinds of vulnerable, rewriting himself into what I surmise were his last moments with Kyle and vowing to keep his name and memory alive. So, I mean, this album is all over the place stylistically, whereas their 2015 self titled album was a foray into more melodic radio rock, and 2017's Cold Like War was a return to form with some misfires a la Encoder thrown wedged in between. This album is a constant tug and pull between the band's established metalcore foundation with a sizable dose of pop and hip hop tendencies. When it's time for the former, expect plenty of intense drumming and riffing and a lot of punishing breakdowns, but otherwise, you're in for a lot of chances being taken. in any other situation, I would likely indict this album as being tonally inconsistent. But given the context, it almost seems sort of morbidly symbolic, irrespective of whether or not We Came as Romans intended for this to be the case. It seems like the tonal inconsistency matches the messy stages of grief that are without question the elemental thread of this album's narrative. There isn't a single moment on here where you're not reminded of Kyle or the band's attempts to put their grief and emotions into words and song. There isn't a moment on here where it seems like they're talking about anything else. If it's not the soul-crushing attempt at a goodbye they never had, it's their admirable wishes to carry on. And I'll be honest, there were a couple of moments on here that definitely I wouldn't say I got emotional, but I definitely, uh, you know, I can't speak on their behalf of how they feel and how they've processed their grief the last 3 to 4 years. But there's definitely moments on this album where I can definitely, not, of course I sympathize, but like they definitely strike a resonant tone with me, and it solicits a palpable emotional response from me. Now, whereas other bands like maybe Linkin Park with Chester Bennington, they will likely never escape the discourse not being about their fallen frontman. It'll be interesting to see if We Came as Romans even attempts to oscillate away from what they're doing here with Darkbloom. I'm sure future releases will no doubt grapple with the unending sense of grief and loss, but it'll be interesting to see if a glimmer of sunlight comes back into the mix. They don't have to force it to. They're not obligated to. They have every right to continue to mourn, and I think their attempt to eulogize Kyle, though stylistically muddy, was well done and quite remarkable given the circumstances. I'm going to give Darkbloom by We Came as Romans a 4 out of 5. Let me know what you guys think of this album. If you enjoyed this review, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified when a video drops. We'll see you back here again soon. Rest in peace, Kyle.